redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. I appreciate you joining me today. This is your daily dose of objective truth in the world of lies. Guys, I know that you've already heard the story. Everyone's talking about the story. Sometimes I try to avoid the stories that everyone's talking about. In this case, I can't. And let's face it, when you're in this business, you need to talk about the big stories, even if you're looking to find your own niche or niche in the market. All right. So obviously, the big story today is the story about Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin is the NFL football player, the defensive back playing for I believe he was defensive back was his position, playing for the Buffalo Bills. And as you guys know, as he went to tackle a player from the Cincinnati Bengals, he did tackle him. Initially, he took a hard impact to the chest. Or a blow to the chest as the guy, I believe the guy's name is T. Higgins, lowered his chest, and then Damar Hamlin tackles the guy, and then gets up after he tackles him, and literally just goes into cardiac arrest. Basically, gets up, stumbles back 2 or 3 steps maybe, and then just collapses with his hands frozen. Obviously, goes into cardiac arrest. Thank God the medical professionals were there. The team doctors were there right away. And so they were able, at least for now, I believe, to save his life. We are praying and hoping for the best. But I think all of you, not all of you, but many of you that are listening to this podcast, there's a couple of thoughts that came to mind. Initially, my very first thought was, oh my God, Lord, please save this guy. Please heal this guy. Please don't let this guy die. I knew possibly that his mom and or parents were watching, and I just didn't want this guy to die in the field like this young, healthy seeming guy. So first and foremost, my primary concern was his health. And then, just like all of you, and let's not fake the funk, just like all of you, my mind started, what the heck would cause this? You know, was it the blow? And then it's like, was it the you know what? And you know what I'm talking about. Or was it something else? I want you to hear this audio from this doctor, sports doctor, that says that it could be something else called, I believe it's a commotio cardio. Anyway, we'll let the sports doctor explain. And then I want to offer just a few more takes on the subject before we move on. Obviously, there's some big news. Pope Benedict the XVI has passed away. I just want to give you, listen, if you're Catholic, I want to give you my deepest regards. I think he was a giant in the faith, obviously taking over Pope John Paul II. So I want to opine on him and also the war in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war. We haven't talked much about that lately, but there's been a major attack against the Russians by Ukraine, killing many, where the Russians are forced to admit that it was a large attack, killing many Russian soldiers. We'll get into that. And lastly, obviously, the really big news, politically speaking, of the day is what's happening with the race for the Speaker of the House. Will Kevin McCarthy get his 218 votes or not? I'm going to tell you why. And despite the fact that no one else is claiming this, listen, you got Newt Gingrich even coming out saying this is a kamikaze mission for the Republican Party. No, actually, the Republican Party was already on a kamikaze mission. I'll explain why. But first, let's go back to this clip or let's listen to what the doctor has to say about this awful incident that occurred yesterday with Damar Hamlin collapsing on the field.
What we just witnessed tonight is one of the most rare things we can see in sports medicine, as Damar Hamlin went down with what appeared to be cardiac arrest after taking this hit on the field. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Suter, and on this channel I try to teach you about the sports medicine world and give you some insight into what we see on the field. What we saw happen tonight is not related to any sort of vaccines. This is almost certainly something called commotio cordis, an extremely rare condition that's one of those things that we typically only think we're going to read about in textbooks. Essentially, what can happen is if you have a blunt trauma to the chest that occurs at exactly the right time in the cardiac electrical cycle, your heart can be sent into cardiac arrest. As Hamlin comes in here, we can see this square hit to the front of his chest. We see him get back up momentarily before ultimately collapsing back down to the ground and requiring CPR on the field. This is a tracing of our heart's electrical activity. Basically, this is one cycle of the heart squeezing. Starts off with this P wave, which is the electrical activity of the atrium at the top of the heart squeezing, then the QRS complex, which is going to be the ventricles acting. But then the last phase is this T wave, where the ventricle basically depolarizes and kind of resets to get ready for the next cycle. For commotio cordis to happen, you have to suffer this blunt trauma to the chest at exactly the right moment, specifically on this upstroke of the T wave, in order for the heart to then be sent into this arrhythmia and subsequent cardiac arrest. This is one of those things that not only do you have to have a high enough force, but it has to happen within milliseconds of a time window, because if that impact comes at any other time in this electrical cycle, you're fine. You don't go into this. But when it happens at just this right time during this upstroke of the T wave, and if it's high enough, then you can have this thing called commotio cordis. We typically think of it happening in baseball players whenever they get hit in the middle of the chest with a hard thrown ball, but unfortunately that looks like what is most likely to have happened here with Hamlin. Treatment like this is obviously CPR and defibrillation as quickly as possible, because this can absolutely be a life-threatening thing. Again, this is not something that people should go speculate about vaccines or anything like that causing this cardiac arrest. There was a clear contact, a clear trauma, and I think a clear reason why unfortunately this happened for Hamlin. My thoughts and prayers go out to the player, go out to his family, everybody else there on the field, the medical staff taking care of him. This is an extremely, extremely serious thing. One of those conditions that, like I said, you hope, you pray, you never actually see as a medical provider. But hopefully this was educational.
All right, listen. Okay, so so commotio cordis. This is actually, I heard Clay Travis of Fox News. I believe he does Fox News. Good Lord. Actually, I know he does on the weekend, Fox and Friends over the weekend. But he spoke about this. It was ironic because he said, several years ago, he was going to do a piece for this, I believe for ESPN on the topic of commotio cordis. And he didn't do the piece. They had to scrap the piece because it was so rare. So let me ask you this question. All right. After watching that video, is it no wonder that people would speculate about what happened when the medical industry, big pharma, big tech, and our federal government has been so crappy when it comes to information concerning the jab, when it comes to information concerning COVID-19? I think a lot of the speculation, like everybody would buy into this commotio cardio, and it probably is. I'm not a doctor, but I will say this about the doctor. Has he been the one to diagnose Damar, good Lord, forgive me, Damar Hill? Or Damar Hamlin, I'm sorry. Has he been the one to diagnose him? Has he been the one to examine Damar Hamlin? Listen, I don't want to make this thing political. First and foremost, he's exactly right. We need to be praying. That should be your first thought. We should be praying for Damar Hamlin. We should be Damar Hamlin. Man, I'm sorry. We should be praying and asking God for a full recovery of this young man who has succeeded to the highest level of his profession. There's no doubt that he is an extremely hard worker. He came in as a 6th-round draft pick in 2021. Now he is a starter for the Buffalo Bills. So that tells you something about this guy's work ethic, all right? This guy is a hard worker from all accounts. He's a good and decent guy, all right? But what we witness on the field is so rare. I mean, think about this. Think about what this doctor has just said. Commotio cardio. You have to be hit at the right time, within a millisecond or so, the right time for this to occur, this commotio cordis. How is it that no other NFL football players that I'm aware of, or college football players that I'm aware of, maybe you can correct me, have not suffered from this commotio cordis? At least not in the last several years that I'm aware of. All right. So, and again, maybe you guys are. So explain that to me. These people take hits all the time. How is it that this one player, Damar Hamlin, is the only one that suffers from this very rare occurrence of commotio cordis? I'm sorry, I just have questions. And the reason that we all have questions is because we can't trust the medical field anymore. Sadly, so many of our medical doctors. Now, listen, I know many of you listening are in the medical field, and I know some of you are warriors and you guys are troopers, and you weren't against the mandate of that thing being put in our body. You know what I'm talking about. You guys are the good guys. I get it. But sadly, with the federal government, with big tech, with fascist Fauci, Francis Collins, and Rochelle Walensky and the like, a lot of us have a major distrust for the medical profession now. So it's no wonder that people would resort to this question. And I'm sorry, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for resorting to this question. It isn't about being political when it comes to Damar Hamlin. It's about wanting to know the truth. Is this young, healthy male a victim of what was forced, what he had to, what he had to put in his body in order to keep playing in the NFL? We should know. We should know. Now, if it is commotio cordis, I'm glad that we're being educated about commotio cordis. But frankly, we need to be better educated when it comes to the jab, because doctors have not been forthcoming. And I suspect the doctors have not been forthcoming because a lot of them are responsible for many of you or us getting that thing in our bodies. I didn't, thank God. But I know many people had to as a result of their work. So I'm sorry. It's okay to ask questions. It's America. We should all ask. Because if it's commotio cordis, okay, that's one thing. Extremely rare. Obviously, Damar Hamlin is more likely going to experience that commotio cordis than we are, because we're not taking hard hits playing, football in the NFL to our chest cavity. But it's still extremely rare with them. Extremely rare. But if something happened to him that isn't so rare, we have the right to know. It's just odd. It's just odd. We've all heard the term suddenly died. All right. Now, thank God, from all accounts, Damar Hamlin sounds like he's in critical condition. And Lord willing, he will continue to get better. But we have a right to question what the hell happened on that field. If it's commotio cordis, then we can all kind of walk away and say, man, that is crazy. That's more likely to happen on an NFL field and nowhere else. But if it is something else, like, you know what I'm talking about, we all have the right to know, because this could happen to us. All right, moving on. A couple of news stories that I want to get to today, real quick here. First off, if I will bring my laptop back up to life, I'm performing. I'm performing like a whatever. I'm resurrecting my. I'm resurrecting my laptop. Hey guys. Meanwhile, while I'm doing this, can I please encourage you guys to go to mypillow.com. And help our sponsor, Mike Lindell, and help this podcast, frankly, but also help yourselves, right? MyPillow have great products available to you, American-made products, that are made by an American company, American manufacturing. Their products don't go overseas, all in-house stuff. American made. So mypillow.com. Have you ever picked up a towel set because it's really feels nice and fluffy in the store, and then you get home and the thing simply won't dry? It's basically a towel that's leaving you out to dry. Well, that's why MyPillow has now developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know it sounds crazy to actually find towels that work and dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors, and right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with a promo code Carl. All you have to do is use the promo code Carl. Go to mypillow.com right now. Click on that radio listener special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, a 60-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do to receive this amazing offer is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl at the top of the page, or you can give them a call, 1-800-858-0263. That's mypillow.com, promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 1-800-858-0263. Okay, now a couple of important pieces of news. I really think the death of Pope Benedict I'm just getting the names all screwed up today. The death of Pope Benedict the XVI is very important because you see a transition not just from one line of thinking to the other when it comes to popes. They vary in their belief system. In my opinion, Pope Francis has a more left-leaning viewpoint, whereas Pope Benedict, in my opinion, was. I'm glad he was the Pope to come in after Pope John Paul II because he was a theologian. This is a guy that adhered strictly to Catholic doctrine. And frankly, I think it's what the church needs now with the world going so crazy left. We need a steady anchor. I, for one, don't personally believe that Pope Francis does that for the Catholic Church, but I'm not a part of the Catholic Church, but it is a free country, so I get to talk about it. But Pope Benedict, I know he was called like the Rottweiler or some name that the left gave him in order to make him sound mean, when all he was doing was adhering to Catholic doctrine. Now, he's going to get bashed, and he has been getting bashed by people on the left because at one point, I don't want to get this wrong, but he was recruited for the Nazi party or whatever. He didn't want to be a part of it. He abandoned the army. All right. He abandoned their army in World War II. He later became a cardinal. So just for the record, he abandoned them. He what is the word? What's the military word, Gabe, that does not come to mind right now? Oh my God. Anyway, deserted. Thank you. That Gabe didn't say it, but I thought about that. Anyway, deserted. So it says here, thousands filed past the body of Benedict the XVI on Monday as the Pope Emeritus, who died Saturday at age 35, lay in state at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. He will be buried by his successor, Pope Francis, on Thursday. So as far as I know, this is the first time that this has happened. Before he was Pope Benedict the XVI, he was Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger as John Paul II's prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. He had the reputation of being the Pope's enforcer. Okay, doubling down on traditional church teaching on sexuality and contraception. That's why he is hated by the left. So, he was part of the Nazi movement and all this. No, he deserted. Okay, he was 14 years old. He had no choice, and he deserted. This guy was a brilliant theologian. I was, after Pope John Paul II died, believe it or not, I was heartbroken. I started reading up on Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. So I was heartbroken. And later, I wasn't sure what this Pope would bring. But later I found out more about him, read some of his readings. The guy was absolutely brilliant. So he will be thoroughly missed. And obviously, he's going to go down in history. Sadly, part of his legacy is the fact that he did resign due to ailing health. And so only the first or the second, I believe, in 600 or 700 years to do so. So just anyway, props to Pope Benedict. He was a great theologian, and he will definitely be missed. Frankly, I wish he would have had the health to remain Pope. In my opinion, the world would be better off had he been able to do so. Okay, another piece of very important news. We haven't talked about Ukraine and Russia for a very long period of time, but I think this piece of news is very important because it could lead to further escalation. It could lead to further U.S. involvement. Frankly, I'm at a point where at one point in time, listen, I believe that Ukraine should have been left as a buffer between our NATO allies and Russia. NATO hasn't done their part. Our Western allies haven't done their part, in my opinion, to make sure that Russia doesn't take over whole swaths of Ukraine. And so I'm like, listen, NATO, Western people need to pitch in. And I'm not down for a continued, perpetual, never-ending proxy war, because that's what we're in. We're in a proxy war, and no one got to vote on it. So I'm very bothered about that, because when people vote on it, guess what? People can be held accountable, and we need to know where that money is going. We need to know, did all the weapons that we sent to Ukraine get to Ukraine? We need to make sure that there's no dirty business going on. And right now, we're not able to do that. So I fear that, listen, and let me make this emphatically clear, because I want to help the people of Ukraine. What I don't want to help are the corrupt leaders in Ukraine necessarily, and the corrupt Russians. So they're both Ukrainian leaders, Russian leaders, very corrupt. There's no doubt about it. The issue is, does this help America in some way? And right now, I don't see an exit plan. I don't see a plan, period. And Biden isn't even arguing for why we should continue to fund Ukraine. So that I have a big problem with that. But here's the story. Ukrainian strike kills Russian troops. Exact number contested between belligerents. So Ukraine has confirmed it carried out a strike in the occupied region of Donetsk, which it earlier claimed killed 400 Russian troops. Russian officials contested the figure, saying only 63 troops were killed. Neither claim has been verified, and access to the site is restricted. Obviously, that would happen. The attack on New Year's Day hit a building in the city of Makivka, where Russian forces were stationed. It is extremely rare for Moscow, according to this story from the BBC, to confirm any battlefield casualties. But this was such a deadly attack, according to the BBC, they say that BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg says that staying silent most probably wasn't an option. So this was a huge hit to Russia by Ukraine. It is the highest number of deaths acknowledged by Moscow in a single incident since the war began 10 months ago. In a statement on Monday, Russia's defense ministry said Ukrainian forces fired 6 rockets using the U.S.-made HIMARS rocket system at a building housing Russian troops. All right, 2 of them were shot down. A number of Russian commentators and bloggers acknowledged the attack, but said the numbers were lower than claimed by Ukraine. But Igor Gherkin, a pro-Russian commentator, said hundreds had been killed and wounded, although the exact number was still unknown because of the large number still missing. So either way, this was a massive attack on Russia. So Ukraine, again, strikes killing Russian troops. This was a major attack, obviously. And again, we have to be concerned because we have a dude that's in the White House, selected to the White House, that has no idea what he's doing as far as foreign policy is concerned. There's no plan. It's just keep rolling. As vacations keep rolling. Meanwhile, we have no plan to bring this to an end. No explanation as to why it's important to stay in the fight. Nothing. And we don't know where all the money is going. So that bothers me. Okay, now moving on. Let me get to this, because this has been extremely frustrating for me, and I feel like that I've been a voice crying in the wilderness. Many of my Republican and or conservative colleagues or constitutional restorationists may disagree with me on this issue. But here's the deal. All right, so Kevin McCarthy is supposed to become Speaker of the House, or is likely to become Speaker of the House for the Republican Party. Okay. But he faces still, he hasn't gotten to 218 votes, and that's due to the Freedom Caucus. So a lot of Republicans are pissed. They're turning against the Freedom Caucus. Even Trump and Donald Trump Jr. said, hey, Kevin McCarthy is our guy. And I really do appreciate that from the Trumps, because they're telling you that they believe that they can work with Kevin McCarthy. Here's the problem. If Trump gets reelected in 2024, and personally, I hope he does, but if he gets reelected in 2024 and he becomes the president of the United States again, he gets 4 years. And after 4 years, he's done. All right. So that leaves you and I to fight, and maybe a DeSantis or maybe someone else. I don't know. Or maybe Democrats will win again. We have no clue. So what we need to do is make sure that we, the people, get empowered. And we saw that Mitch McConnell has already sold us down the house. Complete and utter sellout. All right. He gave us judges. Kudos. He did his job. All right. So He did his job as senator, and he made sure that we had conservative justices. You have to give him some credit for making sure that Merrick Garland didn't become a Supreme Court justice, because look at the guy in the DOJ. He's an utter disaster. So I give Mitch McConnell credit for doing his job and standing firm then. But now he's standing firm against us, against we, the people. This guy has sold us out on so many fronts that is unbelievable. The last being this omnibus bill, $1.7 trillion, when the nation is already $31 trillion in debt, and also handcuffing the incoming House Republican leadership or House Republican Party, period. So I'm not as mad about this holdout from the Freedom Caucus. Actually, I'm not mad at all. I'm asking them to hold the line until they get the concessions that they think are necessary. And I'm going to give you some of them, because you even have Newt Gingrich out there. And I love Newt Gingrich, but he's saying that the Republican Party is on a kamikaze mission. Now, I will say this again. I love Newt Gingrich, but remember, he was one that was out saying, and I know he's a brilliant mind, so please, and I would love to interview him. Don't get me wrong. I know he's a brilliant mind. But remember, he was one saying, as was I, the Republican Party needs to come out, well, not as much as you, with like a contract for America, what they need to, what they intend to offer. And they did, but it was so boring. It was so vague. It couldn't catch. It wouldn't catch in today's, era of media with social media. You need sound bites. And we need to know exactly what you meant, even in a soundbite, what you wanted to do. Make the economy strong. Okay. Doesn't everyone want to do that? I know the left doesn't. But isn't that what everyone would say? I mean, it was just weak. It was weak. And so I'm sorry. We're fighting in a different era today. We all thought we were going to win in 2022. We thought it was going to be a red wave. It was a freaking red ripple. And unfortunately, we the people have continued to lose power and oftentimes cede power to these politicians in Washington, D.C. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it. It's amazing to me. We always blame the politicians, but sometimes we, the voters, are the problem too. Do you want to have power or not? That's what the Freedom Caucus is fighting for. And they are getting bashed like nobody's business. You can't turn on. I don't care what state. I don't care if you turn on Fox. I don't care if you turn on Newsmax. I don't care. You can't turn on anything. You can't turn on talk radio. And I'm not bashing. I love my conservative homeboys, but you can't even talk on talk radio and hear an argument seemingly for the Freedom Caucus withholding their vote from Kevin McCarthy, because the argument is nothing can get done in the House. We can't even pick committee chairs. Everything is chaotic. And I agree. We need order in the House. We need unity in the House. That's what a lot of people argue. And I totally understand that. Newt Gingrich says that the House Republicans are on a kamikaze mission. Haven't we been on a kamikaze mission for like a couple of decades now? You tell me when. Okay, here. Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump. We were on a kamikaze mission everywhere in between. Everywhere in between. Now we're on a kamikaze. Hell no. I'm sorry. I think they should continue to fight, and I think they should hold the line. Here's what they're doing. Here's what they want. Here's what they want. Because no one's telling you what they're fighting for. We need unity. Oh my God. We're not going to have the chair. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Shut up. And I'm not saying that stuff isn't important, but here's what we know is going to happen. Kevin McCarthy, I believe, is going to become the speaker, but they should get all the concessions they can because they're fighting for us. Oh, these 5 members. Oh, these 9 members. Oh, these 14 members, or whatever the number is. They're fighting for you, and you should want your power back. Here's what they're fighting for. The most controversial of the rules reforms sought by the House Freedom Caucus under its chairman, Representative Scott Perry, Republican from Pennsylvania, kudos, bringing back the motion to vacate the chair, thus forcing a new vote for a Speaker of the House. This was a late addition by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to the package that was made public late on the 1st of January. McCarthy reversed his previous opposition to restoring the motion during a conference call with House Republicans. So He restored the motion, or he reversed his previous opposition to restoring the motion. So if you listen to talk radio, if you listen to television, what you'll hear is, okay, this motion to vacate, this is so rare, this hasn't happened, and God knows how long. All right, listen to this. Listen to this. That motion, which empowers a single member of the House at any time to propose a vote for a new Speaker of the House, was in effect for virtually the entire history of the Congress. The entire history of the Congress, but it was dropped after Democrats regained the House majority in 2018. Why wouldn't Kevin McCarthy want that back? That's the question. That's the question. I'm starting to wonder. We always complain about the Republicans being weak-kneed. What if it's us? What if it's us, the voters? What if we're the little punks? For God's sakes, the new rule restores the one-member motion, but adds a requirement that there be at least 4 co-sponsors. So they got to be at least 4 co-sponsors. Listen to this. I bet you forgot all about this, because I certainly did. The last time the motion was used was in 2015, when then Representative Mark Meadows, remember Mark Meadows, that came to be the chief of staff for Trump? The last time it was used was in 2015 under Mark Meadows. He did it and forced the removal of Speaker John Boehner. We were all for it then, but we're not now, right? Why? Because media is telling us that? Because other conservatives and Republicans that haven't done their homework are telling you that? Guys, we need to be empowered. And I'm proud of what the Freedom Caucus is doing. What they are doing is courageous, because not only are the left turning against them, but Republicans, conservatives, constitutionalists, so-called, are turning against them. McCarthy's reversal on the motion to vacate came as he struggled to collect enough votes. Obviously, he needs to get to 218 votes. Here's another something that McCarthy is promising. And this is good, because I think the Freedom Caucus is bringing it out of him. And that is, as part of his speaker campaign, to make greater use of the Constitution's, listen to this, grant to the House in article. The Constitution's grant to the House in article. In Article 1, I'm sorry. Of the power to originate all federal spending. That provision provides the House with great leverage against the Senate, against the president, leverage that House conservatives have for years urged Republican leaders to use more frequently. We've ceded all of this power that the House of Representatives has with spending to the Senate and to the president. We're trying to get it back. They're trying to get it back. And Leader McCarthy said he wants to do this. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. As far as funding rules, here's something else they're fighting for. The new package of rules includes restoration of a requirement that any federal tax rate increase is approved by at least 3/5 of the House, as well as restoration of the cut-go rule. The cut-go rule requires any mandatory federal spending increase be offset with a cut in other requiring expenditures. That's what Trump did, and requires the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, to report on the inflationary impact of proposed legislation. All right. The package also restores the Holman Rule. What is the Holman Rule? I didn't know. An on again, off again provision dating to the post-Civil War era that enables Congress to terminate funding the salary and benefits of a particular individual civil servant in the executive branch. God, we don't want that to happen. This is simple stuff. I think Kevin McCarthy should be like, oh, heck yeah, we're going to do that. Return the House to the people. Oh, heck yeah. Make it where these freaking people come into the White House and different positions in the executive branch and get this big paycheck, destroy the country like Pete Buttigieg, and they continue to get paid. Oh man, you know what type of, you know what happened? The people that only want to be in Washington to serve the people would be there in either party. Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist told the Epoch Times, quote, the Republican caucus will adopt 2 rules that will stop much of the bleeding and begin to turn America around. First, any tax hike will require a 3/5 vote. That's not a simple majority vote to pass the House. Second, any increase in entitlement spending must be matched with an equal or greater reduction in entitlement spending. What is wrong with that? Nothing. In preparing for the expected onslaught of oversight investigations, particularly for the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, formerly known as Oversight and Reform, and the House Judiciary Committee, the new rules require every House panel with oversight authority to make public an oversight plan no later than March. What's wrong with that? Another thing that the House wants, or the Freedom Caucus wants, pandemic rules drop regarding the issue of reopening the House to the public. You know, the Congress is open to the public for the first time in 3 years now. So regarding the issue of reopening the House to the public, the rules do away with the proxy voting system instigated by Nancy Pelosi in March of 2020 in response to the pandemic. The new rules also restore the longstanding requirement that House members be physically present. And to his credit, Leader McCarthy is asking for some of this stuff too, to participate in committee. They're just, the Freedom Caucus is just holding his feet to the fire, making sure he keeps his word. What's wrong with that? And getting some concessions. What's wrong with that? If it's going to empower us, I told you before, if you listen to this podcast, it's ruler's law or people's law. If it's ruler's law, we got a bunch of dictators. If it's people's law, it's a democratic republic. We're in charge again. What's wrong with that? Nothing. And we're bashing the Freedom Caucus. God, we deserve to be run over. We deserve to be run over sometimes. Oh, infuriates me. So again, the new rules also restore the longstanding requirement that House members be physically present to participate in committee hearings rather than attending virtually. All right. They can't get away with not coming to town. Also gone are Pelosi's mandated mask wearing by representatives and staff on the floor and in the Capitol complex, as well as fines for members who don't go through metal detectors before entering the House chamber. What's wrong with that? Guys, we're in for a battle to save this country, to restore this country, frankly. And we can't assume that the people in the Republican Party are always on our side or have our best interests at heart. The Freedom Caucus does. And so I'm going to back them. They're going to be called names. I'm going to be called names. I'm going to be called stupid. I'm going to be all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, all that matters is that power returns to the people. Now, I know many of you will argue we can't get any of the investigations done. We can't get this done. We can't get that. Listen, we've been on a kamikaze mission for decades. It's time for the power to return to the people. And if the Freedom Caucus gets the concessions that they want, not only will we have a stronger united front, or they will in the House, but we will as we the people as well. And we should all want that. Guys, I just want to remind you to please go to mypillow.com, click on that radio listener square, use that promo code Carl. Again, take advantage of their deals with the 6-piece towel set, only $39.98 right now for my listeners. And the towels feel amazing. I'm not saying that just to blow smoke up your butt, but for real, the best towels ever. I'm not lying to you. It's weird. It's little things like that make me happy. Their towels make me happy. They actually work. They actually dry. And you need that in a place like Florida when you step out of the shower, typically in the spring and summer, and you're already sweating because of the humidity. So you need great towels. MyPillow.com. Use the promo code Carl. Give them a call if you prefer not to go online, but if you prefer to just call them 1-800-858-0263. That is 858-0263. And guys, again, please subscribe to the podcast wherever podcasts are found. You can go to thecarljacksonshow.com. SalemPodcastNetwork.com is another place that you can go. I would really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys tuning in so much. Please follow me on social media, The Carl Jackson Show. And the next time, don't grow weary doing good. Oh, man. And I forgot to talk about myocarditis when it came to the Damar Hamlin. But that's another something that to be concerned about and to factor in with the commentary that I gave on the player. Continue to pray for Damar Hamlin, pray for his family, the people, obviously in his fans. Everyone was touched by this story, and we wish him all the best. and before all the other political stuff, we certainly pray and hope that he's healed first and foremost. I will say we have a right to question. We're Americans. All right. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.